plant friends! So if you're watching this, you're probably aware the houseplant hobby has gotten pretty insane price-wise in the past couple of years. As things have gotten more popular, it's kind of understandable why some of these plants have gotten to be so expensive. I'm not gonna lie, I have purchased a few premium expensive houseplants that are probably way more expensive than any reasonable person would pay for a plant. And I gotta say, like, I haven't been disappointed by too many of them. Like, there's a reason that they're popular and everyone wants them, which makes them expensive. But even with that in mind, another thing that I've noticed is that once I get a houseplant in my house, I seem to enjoy it kind of no matter what. It doesn't really matter to me if the plant's an expensive plant or a garden center score or even something that's really, really accessible. I still enjoy them all pretty much equally. And this gave me an idea. There are very specific reasons why people are willing to spend more money on certain premium, expensive, rare plants. But that doesn't necessarily mean that those are the only plants with these attributes. So today I'm going to give you a few examples of plants that you can enjoy for the same reasons that people buy rare ones. But before we get started, if you could please do me a solid and hit that like button. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. Also, go ahead and join the conversation and leave a comment. We've been having so much fun in my comment section lately, and this channel is still small enough where I'm able to pretty much respond to every single one. So don't be shy, I would love to talk to you. Lastly, if you would go ahead and subscribe to my channel, it would be really, really awesome. It's the only way that you'll never miss an upload. All right, with that in mind, let's get into it. Okay, so we can't really talk about rare plants and why people buy rare and expensive plants without talking about variegation. People love variegation, and I can completely see why. Variegation is beautiful. It's unnatural looking. It's kind of astounding that this is something that, for the most part, was produced by nature. So I think that we all know that we can't really talk about variegation in the airwood community without talking about variegated monstera. Variegated monstera is kind of the quintessential example of a premium variegated plant. Unfortunately, they are really sought after, so they're very expensive. We're talking about high triple digits for something that's established with multiple mature leaves on it. Even though these plants are a joy to grow, and I highly recommend them to anybody that can get their hands on one, they're not going to be accessible for every single collector. But just because there are a lot of variegated plants with high price tags does not mean that there are not really awesome variegated plants that you can probably find at your local garden center for a very, very reasonable price for a decent sized plant. And I can tell you right now that I get a lot of the same enjoyment and excitement that I get from my Alba Monstera from my Marble Queen pothos. I am not kidding. This plant is so much fun. They have the beautiful, beautiful cream white to light green light coloration on their leaves depending on how much light they're getting, and every single leaf is a surprise. I am not kidding. It is such a fun plant to grow. You can grow it up a pole and the leaves will start to get much, much bigger, and eventually, if you give it the right conditions and you give it enough time and it climbs long enough, it will fenestrate. I love this plant. I think I picked mine up at a nursery in San Diego for, I'm not even kidding, like $12 for a 4-inch pot. It's a great deal. So if you love variegation, but you don't love the price tag that it comes with, check out a Marble Queen pothos. They are a lot of fun, and I enjoy them for the exact same reason that I enjoy a lot of my expensive premium variegated plants as well. Moving swiftly on, another reason why a lot of people shell out the big bucks for rare and premium plants is because they love that velvety goodness. Velvet leaf plants have been having a huge moment the past couple of years, and it's really easy to see why. they are stunning. This right here is a great example of a premium velvet leaf plant, and as you can see, it is just stunning. This is my Philodendron glorious. It is a hybrid between the Philodendron gloriosum and the Philodendron melanochrysum. And these plants are quite pricey nowadays. If you are a lover of velvety goodness, but you do not love the idea of paying triple digits for a plant like this, then I would highly suggest that you look into getting a Philodendron micans. Now, this is a really, really fun plant. It has surged in popularity over the past couple of years, so sometimes they're really hard to find at garden centers and nurseries, but a lot of them do stock them, so if you kind of keep an eye on the restocks, you should be able to get one for an actual standard retail price. You also may know a plant friend who has one that needs a haircut and may give you some cuttings. But these plants are super, super fun because they are super, super velvety. They do look itty bitty small, but if you let them climb and you give them good light, they will get really, really big. This plant right here is very small and it's in a very juvenile form. As they get bigger, they start to look a lot more like this plant. And in their most mature form, they're not even velvet anymore. Not that it's easy per se to get a Philodendron micans to climb enough to the point where it's gonna stop being velvet. But if you are really into velvet plants and you just don't want to take the plunge on something really expensive, Philodendron micans really can't be beat. Philodendron micans, velvety goodness on a budget. Another reason why folks may be willing to shell out the big bucks to add specific premium or rare plants to their collections is because they feel like they have enough experience as a plant hobbyist in the horticultural discipline that they are ready for a challenge. So a really good example of a premium plant or a rare plant that is notorious for being a huge challenge is the Philodendron luxurians. This plant is absolutely stunning, and as you can see, she has a couple of the characteristics that we already talked about. They have a reputation for needing really, really high humidity and not liking to dry out, being picky about how they're watered. I so far haven't really found that to be the case, but I do know from firsthand experience that they ship absolutely horribly, especially when you're importing them internationally. These plants run in the mid triple digits for a very small one. This right here is another example. It's a more juvenile plant, but I purchased this plant in the mid triple digits a couple of months ago. This plant I also paid in the mid triple digits for, but it was back before it had this really beautiful, like typical luxurians leaf on it. So I do think that if you are looking for a plant that is as stunning as this, you're probably going to pay upper triple digits for it, especially if there's multiple leaves like this, and especially if they are large. You can of course roll the dice and try to import one, but it's really a coin flip whether or not your plant is going to make it. Now, if you are not in the market to spend that kind of coin on something like a Philodendron luxurians that would be fun to take on the challenge, but you absolutely do not want to light that money on fire if the plant dies, you may be ready to try a Calathea. Calathea are beautiful, beautiful, beautiful plants, but they do have a reputation for being a bit finicky, a bit challenging. You have to give them filtered or distilled water because otherwise their leaves will burn, and they generally need higher humidity than most other garden center purchases, and they also are really picky about the light that you put them in. They like a very narrow balance of filtered light. Generally, you can find these in garden centers for, you know, the $15 to $25 range. Perfect plant to see if your skills have leveled up on, because it's just not a huge loss if the plant doesn't make it and you could try multiple times. Another one of the biggest reasons that people will shell out for plants is because they are pink. Pink plants are always popular, and they were having a moment like none before about a year and a half ago. As of right now, I would say that the most iconic pink plant in the horticultural discipline is probably the Philodendron Pink Princess. And I can absolutely see why people went absolutely crazy for these, because, ooh, look at that. That pink is just stunning. These have come down in price as of late because they've been tissue cultured a lot in Southeast Asia. I think you could probably get a pink princess nowadays for anywhere from upper double digits to low triple digits, depending on how mature it was, how big it was, if it's established or not, and how pink it is, because there's a lot of pink princesses out there that only have little bitty bits of variegation on them, and there's not as many that look like this consistently throughout the whole plant. But if you are a lover of pink foliage on a budget, there are options that are not going to run you anywhere near as much as a pink princess. And I'm actually going to tell you about two. The first one is the pink variety of Syngonium podophyllum. These can be found in garden centers pretty much anywhere. They're super accessible, very inexpensive, and Syngonium in general are very easy plants. They grow like crazy. Rock on with your bad self, grow that thing to the ceiling. Another option, if you're not super into Syngonium, is the Ficus elastica ruby. So this is a variety of variegated ficus where the new growth comes in bright pink. It's beautiful. I have one myself. One of my favorite plants. Super satisfying when it puts out that new pink growth. And it's also one of those where the variegation is a surprise on every single leaf. So highly recommend looking for one of those if you love pink, but you can't bring yourself to spend that much money on a pink princess. Another reason that people love a lot of these premium plants is that they have stunning veins. Stunning veins on dark foliage is a trend that I don't think is ever going to go out of style. And I would be remiss if I did not show you perhaps the most iconic example of a veiny boy in our hobby. The one and only Queen Anthurium. These are iconic for a reason. They are so striking. Those dark leaves, those bright veins, the long leaves. Oh man, they're pretty much on everyone's wish list if they don't already have them. Now, Queen Anthurium, because they are difficult to care for and difficult to propagate and have a tendency to die, are not cheap. They go for, mid triple digits usually for a decently established plant if you are not willing to take the risk of importing it. So if you love this aesthetic but don't want to deal with the drama and don't want to spend the money, your next best bet is probably an alocasia. This here is an alocasia black velvet, and it has everything that the Queen Anthurium has, except, it's just a little bit of a round boy instead of a long boy, but this was $15. So if you want dark velvet leaves with striking veins on a budget, alocasia in general, there are quite a few that have striking veins, but I think the alocasia black velvet is probably the best example of something that has all of those characteristics but is just way cheaper. So another characteristic of a plant that people are willing to pay a lot of money for is silver. Between all of the different silver variegated philodendrons, the silver hoyas, you're literally seeing it everywhere, and I understand why. The plants are incredible. And I would say that there is really no better ambassador for why silver variegation can command a high price than the Philodendron Majestic. This is my Philodendron Majestic, and I wish that the light was a little bit better so you could really see how it sparkles and glitters and how metallic it is. But these plants are really gaining in popularity this year. I would honestly say that they're still pretty hard to come by. When you do find them, if they are halfway decently mature established plant, I mean, you're gonna be paying close to quadruple digits or maybe over quadruple digits, depending on how big the plant is. I got this plant back in January and it was just a one leaf rooted cutting, and I paid in the mid triple digits. I don't think you could touch this plant for that amount of money anymore unless you get really lucky in a purge or something. But she's just absolutely stunning, and I love this plant. I think it's absolutely worth the investment. But if you think that's absolutely crazy, then I have a suggestion that you will probably find much more reasonable. And that, friends, is the Scindapsus pictus. The Scindapsus pictus argyrius and the Scindapsus pictus exotica have this beautiful, striking, silver sparkly variegation, but you can usually find them at garden centers, and for a small pot, I mean, you're probably gonna be paying garden center prices. This is also another really good one to see if you can try and get from a friend, because a lot of people have these plants. The other cool thing about the Scindapsus pictus is that if you let it climb up a plank, it will actually start to shingle, kind of like a Monstera debaya. So if you love silver, but you just can't pay anywhere near the price for a majestic, or even like a mame, or a plummonii, or even a pastazanum silver, Scindapsus pictus argyrius might be the way to go. Okay, so this is one for all of the Hoya lovers out there, and that is sunstress. People love a sunstressed plant, you guys. If you can get a plant to change color when you sunstress it, people just go nuts for it. And I have for you today an example of a pretty pricey Hoya that will give you beautiful sunstress. This is the absolutely beautiful Hoya Horticultural Variegation, and this plant, the prices have definitely come down on it quite a bit recently. So if you were looking for it and you're just not able to pay like $300 for a node, well, they're definitely more accessible now, but they're still really pricey. These sunstress pink. I cannot wait to sunstress this plant pink. Once it's established, it's going straight in the sun, and I am so excited. I love this plant when it starts to get pink. It's incredible. But alas, many of us are not willing to pay Horticultural prices for teeny tiny salad greens. But I have actually been getting my Hoya sunstress enjoyment for years from my Hoya Crimson Queen, aka one of the most accessible, easy to find Hoyas pretty much out there. I got mine at a nursery. I've seen them at garden centers all over the place. They have gotten a bit more expensive, and if you live in a place where it's hard to find Hoyas, you may not be able to find one of these, but you can find them online. You may have a friend who has one. You might be able to get them for free or for cuttings. They're just so fun. The pink on these plants is just so brilliant. So if you love the idea of sunstress Hoyas, but you aren't paying for them, Hoya Crimson Queen is a really good one to try and get. Okay, so that brings me to our last characteristic that we're going to talk about today, and that is dark leaves. Whoo, man, does the aroid community love itself a dark leaf. I am not gonna lie, when I first started getting into plants, I only wanted dark leaves. Dare I say, I was a bit of a closeted plant goth. However, many dark plants are highly sought after, and an excellent example is this Anthurium cyrenoi velvet. These babies are very hard to find. I don't see them available for sale very often. I've only seen them listed in South America for import. I've never seen them in Southeast Asia, and when I do see them, it's always like inbox for price, or they don't even like have it in stock ever. I'm sure if I was gonna buy one domestically, especially one this size, it would be expensive. And honestly, like, I get it. It's gorgeous. However, if you are a budding plant goth and you don't want to shell out the big bucks or go on a rabbit hunt trying to find something that has leaves to the darkness of your specifications, I would recommend that you pop down to your local garden center and pick up a burgundy rubber plant. Burgundy rubber plants are gorgeous. They have dark leaves, and you can actually get them to grow really big if that's what you want. They're literally a tree, you guys. They get big. Their leaves basically look almost black. You can get a burgundy rubber plant for really cheap. I think I saw them at Home Depot recently, like big ones with leaves like canoe paddles, for like 40 bucks. I think I've seen like much smaller ones that are kind of more of like a tabletop plant with like multiple cuttings in the pot for, I don't know, like less than $20. You can get like really small ones for like $5 if you find them. Gorgeous, gorgeous plants. Someday when I have more space, I definitely want to get a really big burgundy rubber plant. I think they are amazing. Honorable mention goes to the ZZ Raven. This plant used to be very rare, very expensive, and very, very coveted. However, now they are available through, you know, Cost of Plants distribution. A lot of people find them at Walmart. I still think they're a stunning plant. Not gonna lie, they grow extremely slow, but they are black, 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 dark, dark, dark. And if that is what you're looking for, the ZZ Raven will definitely check that box for you. All right, well, that kind of sums up all of the different reasons that at least I personally have shelled out for expensive plants, and some examples of cheap plants that you can get the same enjoyment from. Of course, there are lots of other reasons that people buy expensive plants, you know, Instagram likes, flexing, propping up their ego, what have you, that you may not get from common plants. But, you know, I think that we should kind of pull the veil back. Like, you can enjoy common plants for literally the exact same reasons that people shell out for the rare ones. Like, a lot of these characteristics are just not exclusive to expensive plants. Like, there's no gatekeeping on enjoying variegation, for example. There's tons of examples of plants that you can get that you're gonna have a ton of fun with. So I really hope that this was helpful. Go ahead and give this video a like, give me a comment, tell me about your favorite common plants that you enjoy and why you don't think you need to buy the rare version of it. That is gonna be it for today. Have a good one, you guys. Bye!